It's Monday morning motivation message for you. I was rereading a book over the weekend and a powerful message hit me stronger than it probably did the first time I read this book. And it was so powerful that I've shared it now with two friends who it was timely for them as well. And because it was such a powerful thought and message, I thought that maybe you could also gain from it. The book, and I talked about this on my Tuesday with librarian Lucille, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, right in the very first chapters of the book. And because this is so timing for the end of the year and the beginning of the year, some of the goals and changes that we sometimes do in our lives, that's what makes this so timely in its message. He talks about how tiny little things done over a long period of time make massive changes. So here's 3 examples that he gives. One is, picture you're in a boat. You are heading towards this spot on the horizon. It's a tree or a structure or something, and you know where you're going and you're heading towards it. And the water starts to get choppy and the wind starts to blow. And there's these massive distractions like other boaters or whatever, and you maybe shift or change your direction, your steering, like 1 or 2 degrees. Not big, but just this tiny 1 or 2 degree shift and change. You go 300 leagues, and you are nowhere near this spot on the horizon. You are way off your mark. In fact, you might completely miss the shoreline because of that tiny change, but over time and distance, it makes a massive change. Here was the other example that he gave. This was number 2, and it's really brief, and I'm just going to read it. I have a quick real-time story to illustrate this nothing fails like success concept. A great new restaurant opened up close to my home on the beach in San Diego. In the beginning, the place was always immaculate. The hostess had a big welcoming smile for everyone. The service was impeccable. The manager would come over to the tables and we were sure that our food was sensational and our service was top-notch. Soon people started lining up to eat there and would often wait more than an hour to be seated. We all know of a place just like this, right? Then, unfortunately, the restaurant staff began to take its success for granted. The hostess became snooty, the service staff disheveled and curt, and the food quality hit or miss. They failed because of their success, or rather, because they stopped doing what made them successful to begin with. Their success was clouding their perspective and they slacked off. And they ended up closing in a short amount of time. The third example is a little longer, but this one I could relate to. Now, here's a quick one. Here's a quick one that he gives. I can give you $3 million today, or I can give you a penny that will double in value every single day. Which would you take? Well, most of us would just take the $3 million and be done, right? Sure thing. Yep, I'll take it. But that 1 penny in over a year and a half becomes 10.7 million, doubling in value every day. That's a very short time to have to wait for triple what the original success or offer was, right? Big time. Here's the longer term one. Brad and Scott both make changes in their life. And their life and their body and their structure and their DNA and things are pretty similar. Scott decides to give up 125 calories a day. He takes that coffee in the morning with the cream or a cocktail one at the end of the day, and he takes them out of his life. So he is taking 125 simple calories out of his diet every day. Brad, on the other hand, right? Brad and Scott. Scott's taking 125 off his diet. Brad decides he really likes the fat and savoriness of being on keto. And he ends up adding 125 calories. Now, again, that's just like half a muffin. That's not a big deal, 125 calories. Scott starts seeing that he's clearer at work. He sleeps better. He starts making healthier choices in activity and things like that. He starts to do really well at work. He's sharp, he's attentive, he participates, he's exceeding his goals, he's doing really well. Now keep in mind, this is just 125 calories. Brad, on the other hand, is not sleeping well. He starts watching HTV cook shows, the Food Network, and he starts cooking in the kitchen. He starts making sweets and rich, creamy, savory foods. His family and his wife are loving this because this is really good and it feeds his soul. He feels really good because he's making something that everyone appreciates and enjoys. In 3.5 years, 3.5 years, Scott has lost 33 pounds. That's just 10 pounds a year, right? Brad has put on over 33 pounds. Brad, because he wasn't sleeping, began to miss days at work. He wasn't doing well. He didn't exceed. He ended up being reported and was facing suspension at work. He wasn't as attentive to his wife and his children. And his wife, seeking validation and companionship, reached out to her friends and coworkers. She started hanging out with them more. And then they started hanging out in places where she was getting flirted with. And she did well. She would never cheat on Brad. But she's adoring this affirmation and attention that she doesn't get at home. Can you see that long-term down the road, tiny little shifts and changes make a huge difference in where we end up and where we go and in our journey? Just 1 or 2 degrees. What tiny little shifts or corrections do you need to make so that you hit your mark and your goal? What tiny little things? I remember when I started trying to put exercise back into my, after 2020, because, that just destroyed everything, right? I started out with just a tiny little thing that I knew I could do every single day. 25 squats with a 20-pound kettlebell. Just something little. I added to that a 3-minute plank hold. And I have added to that and added to that. Those are tiny little I can do every single day shifts that in the long run make a huge difference. So for your Monday, as we wrap up this year with 2 weeks left, little excess, but what 1 or 2 degree shift in your direction can you make so that 2023 and beyond exceed your expectations? And using the compound effect, tiny little shifts over time make a huge direction change and impact. I am quite sure that Brad thought at the time 125 calories was not going to change his life. But in 3.5 years it did. Drastically changed his life. Make some changes right now, just tiny little ones that you know you can keep every single day. And let's see where you end up in 1.5 years, 3 years. And instead of rewarding yourself with that $8.50 coffee or that tiny little thing, what would happen to that if you put it towards your credit card? Every day, $8. And you just put it towards your credit card or your debt or your savings. And where are you in 1.5 years? 10.7 million? 1.5 years? Or 3 million right now? Pretty amazing when you think about the long term. Hope you have a fabulous Monday and enjoy your week. This is Annette, wishing you well, loving you from here.